program, but I just want to get right into politics here.
No, boy.
As everything's
no warm up.
As everything's heating, you better stretch before you got here, Chad. Okay, so we're all watching this happen. The election is down to days, so people are really getting out and voting. I know that I saw for the Harvey County elections put out that said early in-person voting. This was a day ago. Has continued. Voting is available Monday through Friday from 8 to 5, and then Saturday from 9 a.m. to 2, and then after that you just go to your respective polling location from 7 to 7. But these numbers are still out. They're off the chart.
They're setting records every day.
They're setting records.
Amazing.
So, I talked to Rick and I asked him, I said, Rick, who's our Harvey County elections clerk, or a clerk and elections official, so just on the election side of it. And I said, do you think the numbers that we're seeing are going to wind up in the end being, out off the charts when it's all said and done? Or do you think that people are just changing up their voting habits? Mm-hmm. And I think we can all surmise maybe whether that's the case or not the case or anything. And then, time will tell. But so far, in the first 4 days of early voting, there's been over 2,000 people cast their ballot. And half the people that had requested an advanced by mail-in ballot have been returned. So we're looking at 50% of mail-in ballots already being returned, which means people got it. They turned around. They want to vote. And then also with people in general just getting out and vote. And I watched some national news, and it seems like they're setting records everywhere. Mm-hmm. Why do you guys think that's the case? Do you think that we're going to see an extreme turnout this election cycle, or do you think that it's just people changing up their habits and getting out and voting early?
I think my gut is telling me it's a little bit of both. I think we're going to see a pretty big turnout for this particular election. We usually do for presidential elections. We really do.
See a higher turnout.
Yeah, we see higher turnouts. And I do think, too, that there are people that have caught on that early voting is... Man, it's just straight up easier.
Yeah.
And unless you showed up on day one, and I'll speak specifically to Harvey County, unless you showed up at day one, 5 minutes before the poll opened, you're not having to wait in a big long line to vote. And I've seen some reports of folks that are showing up and they're getting there at, right before the polls are closing, and clerks are like, dude, I just want to go home. And I get that, right? Mm-hmm. Right? And on election night, when they just want to go home and they want to shut things down and they want to take things into the courthouse to be counted, they got to wait. If you were in line at 7, they have to let you vote. They can't turn you away if you are in line at 7 o'clock. Right?
Yeah.
And people know that. And so early voting is just a lot easier. You don't have to deal with, for the most part, you don't have to deal with lines that are hours long. It might be minutes long. I voted on day one, and I waited maybe 5 minutes to get in there because all the stations were filled. So that's my 2 cents. It's both. I don't know.
What do you think?
The question was, do we think we're going to have more of a turnout, or do we think we have more early voters?
Yeah.
I think the messaging has been very direct to the Republican Party in particular, especially for our area, but I know this is national, to get out and vote early. There's a lot of reasons for that. Don't want to get too far in the weeds on that.
Well, and it's a different message than we heard.
That is not tradition for our party.
Yeah,
for the party. It's like
no.
Show up the day of to vote, and that's the kind of the process and how that's a thing, right?
Yeah.
And so, but now I think those Those ribbons have been broken and people are coming in more than before, especially, again, I will say in our area, we have the amount of registered Republicans versus Democrats is big in this area. So you're getting more of that, which has been interesting. I think the messaging is salacious on both sides of the aisle. It's pretty wild. If you're catching the commercials when they pop on, I watch stuff in the background, and I didn't notice it too much here in Kansas because I do a lot of my own streaming and stuff here. But when I was down in South Texas, places that they had the TV on, it's like traditional style TV. Still do a lot of that out there. And I got to see for the first time in a really long time the commercials in between the games, the ball games, the high visible spots that are in media, right? The traditional sense of media, right, Chad? You remember those things and when that used to happen. But those commercials that draw a lot of eyeballs, for example, the Cowboys game down in that area, you would have a Kamala commercial, then you would have a Trump commercial that literally spoke right against that, then you would have a Kamala commercial, then you would have a Trump commercial. And I was just like, wow, they're spending a ton of cash on those spots. Kansas is small. We don't see that here because we have like 3 or 4% or 3 or 4 chips that we pitch into the big number.
Our total population is 3 million.
So our marketplace, they're not going to dump a bunch of money into. They're dumping money into those hot spots. When you travel to those areas, you kind of see the shift in culture and the messaging a little more aggressively. And that's the nature of those places anyways. So I think from the perch that I'm watching this from, I think that the last election of 2020, we had, I think, the biggest turnout ever. I believe this is a continuation of people being moved one way or the other, whatever their views are. So I think we will have more voters. And I think targeting the Republican voters, there's more Republicans showing up than ever before. So I think it, like Chad said, it's going to be a combination of both, but I do think we will have more voters, and I think we have more Republicans showing up because of the direct messaging to do it. Yeah. And again, there's some psychology behind that is keep people home that won't vote if they see the numbers are so slighted early. You have a lot of these games that are going on at the higher levels, which they're all tossing dice, but they're tossing dice with experience and with some habit patterns that they've gathered over the last 100 years or whatever, right? So they're going to do their best job to sway all of those percentages in their favor, which you should be doing if you're running a serious campaign. I just think some of it's silly. And there's a lot of wasted money and time on campaigns.
Well, and you think, and to say this, it is silly. I will agree with you on that. But I think it's very targeted, as you had mentioned. And I want to talk about messaging now when it comes to political campaigns. And there's a couple different things I want to cover. But just with messaging in general, I've talked about this before. And it's that, Trump is the devil. Go and vote for Kamala Harris. Trump is the devil. He's going to take your rights away. He's going to be a dictator. But also, the next commercial is Kamala Harris is the devil, and you need to get out and vote, or the devil is going to win, and they're both going to run the country, and they're both Nazis, and they're both Hitler, and they're both. I mean, I sit back and I'm an observer, right? I'm an observer. I study politics, but this messaging, it is true that it's very destructive.
It is true. One of them's the devil. No, I'm
hey, we'll leave it up to you to decide. Get out and vote. No, but honestly, okay, I was looking for something specific that I wanted to do a comparison, okay, and then get your guys' take on it. But I thought, man, you can't get any better of a comparison than this. All right. Recently, there was a article put out. I'm going to say here that I think it was BBC. And it was that the title says Biden angers Republicans by associating garbage with Trump supporters. So what you have is you have Biden over here that's calling Trump supporters garbage, okay? But in the same token, the same word, garbage, happened to be used during a Trump rally campaign by a comedian. And the comedian said that the island of Puerto Rico is full of garbage or trash. Okay, so we have the same word that's being used on both sides of the aisle. Both sides of the aisle are having people that are not the candidate speaking this divisive And I mean, we could say humorous, we could make reasons or why that one said it and the other said it, and we can excuse it because this or that. But I look at it on the face, and it's that we have national news being made by both different entities and supporters of those individuals that are referring to people as garbage. What do you guys think about that?
Let the candidates speak for themselves.
Yeah.
Just let them speak for themselves. I mean, seriously. When you're sitting down to try and figure out who you're going to vote for, evaluate the candidates. Evaluate the candidate. Okay? I mean, here's another example. Okay? So it was all over X was it last night? Yeah, it was last night. The night I couldn't sleep. It was all over X
Probably
last
couldn't
night.
sleep because you were on X.
No.
It didn't help.
Get you all stirred up.
Boy.
I mean, we can talk about why I couldn't sleep.
When I need some adrenaline, I just go to X and we're like, whoa.
That feeds that hate machine, boy.
I was
It's
worried
not
about. I was worried about getting laid off from one of my 3 jobs, and trying to figure out how I was going to rebudget to deal with a loss of about $1,000 a month. That's tough. But anyway, it was all over X last night that Harris had a rally, okay, in D.C. And inevitably, there were supporters of the Donald Trump campaign saying, "Oh man, she had a rally where the KKK had a rally in 1934. She's obviously..." I'm like, wait a minute.
Not any different than Madison Square Garden.
And by the way, in 2020, Donald Trump had a rally in the same spot.
Isn't it crazy?
So come on.
But see, that's the thing is we're all coming from, and I believe this. We all have our own biases because everybody has biases.
I totally
it's just
have them.
the way it is. Okay,
yeah.
but to
I
understand,
do too.
to understand that you have bias and to self-check, self-reflect means that you're not a hypocrite. So we try, and I believe this about both of you guys, is that the 3 of us sitting here are not hypocrites. We all have the ability to call each other on the carpet and say, hey, I think this is, leaning into your biases. We all have enough respect for one another that then the person says, they said I was leaning in my bias. Am I leaning in my bias? Or, so there's accountability amongst us. But I'll say this, this rhetoric is almost laughable. But it goes back to what we talked about before on the program, which is my question. Is the message, the person that puts out this message, the one that's responsible, or is it the person that's consuming this message, believing this message without the claim warrant data? Okay,
it goes back
oh my God, I can't believe this is this is the thing. Okay, you ask a Democrat, okay, and what they're going to say is I'm not going to say, I'll put that brand on there. You take somebody that associates with the Democratic Party and that identity politic wing of that party, and you say Donald Trump did a rally at Madison Square Gardens. He was all over this. Oh, that's just like Hitler. But then all of a sudden, if somebody comes out, okay.
But who cares? That was 100 years ago.
Well, and then not only that, but how? I mean, it's not. Yeah, okay. So for sake of time, right? We're sitting here and we're saying that all of a sudden Kamala Harris is having a rally where the KKK had a rally
100 years ago. Yes.
But yet the Democrat that's sitting there is only going to
cover it with more poop.
Yeah, the only thing that the Democrat is going to do is really here because we've dug ourselves into these 2 lanes. Is, well, by God, Trump, he held a rally just like Adolf Hitler, but I can't believe that they're saying that Kamala Harris is somehow associated with the KKK. And then vice versa. You'll have the same people going, oh, well, that's ridiculous that they would say anything about Donald Trump being at Madison Square Garden and it being the place that Hitler had a rally and it's so Hitler-esque. But yet, but yet Kamala Harris, look at her. She was over there doing a rally with the KKK. It's like, where does this start to click?
Yeah,
in people's brains?
I think just we're too close to it. I think because the nature of what we do for a living and the circles that we travel in and the things we do. I don't know if you guys remember an amazing human named Steve Kelly. I would consider him a mentor and a dear friend. Steve, I love you, man. I remember being a part of his team, and when there was a flyer that went out that was negative against his opponent, the one I which will not speak of. And well,
the one that told
Steve
me to F
really, that one. I'm sure I'll get it eventually. And Steve, honestly, as gracious of a human being as he is, was so bothered by that because he had nothing to do with that flyer. He had nothing to do with the people who sent it out. That person was trying to be moved out of Topeka, I'm sure, by the other party because they were boisterous and loud and aggressive. And so Steve took the time to write a letter. I don't know if y'all remember that, and denounced that flyer and spoke against it. And that's one of the things that the messengers or the people that are at least in the front, because some of them have handlers. I'm going to tell you, I do not believe Donald Trump has any handlers in his life. That man is a handful by himself, to his own self, and everything else.
He has no handlers. He has no filters.
No. He's a New York East Coast developer.
Yeah.
Get out of his way. And he's a beast in that world, which is, it's saying a lot.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Just doing business in New York is a thing. If you're doing business at the highest levels in the hardest industry with the most regulated pieces of it, and you have a known knack of getting it done, you're the guy that the impossible people say it's impossible, that you're the guy they call when it gets to that point. Unbelievable. And you succeed time and time again, right? So this guy, right? So anyways, the other one has handlers, and they're trying to be more diplomatic, I think, in their approach with things, and that's part of what some people want, right? So you got personality types they're driving for here. But when you look at these characters, I think people like Steve had no control, but he had control after what happened later.
Yep.
And that's the one thing that, even because if you understand media and how things play, Trump, in my opinion, is one of those guys that lets it go. And so do most other I think all candidates. I've never seen one national figure step out and do what Steve Kelly did. You care about somebody, even if you have differences, enough to say, that's not right. I'm not going there. They could do that to me. I'll take it. I'm not going there. And I didn't appreciate that. And he wrote a letter to the public and to those people separately saying, I'm that's not what I want in my name for my person. You can't borrow credibility from a man like that enough, right? Because if he gives you a check mark, there's a reason why people respect that check mark.
Well, and honestly, okay, it's all clickbait. It's what's the most provocative is going to get the most publicity. So the question then becomes, when you're in the run for trying to get headlines of some kind, letting it slip or saying something that might be a little bit ridiculous is going to put you out there in front. And the nature of it is that people are going to be talking about it. People are going to, the people, and it goes back to this. If people, we are at this situation in politics. If people like you or love you, there is nothing that someone is going to say about you that is going to have any effect. What will happen is those people that like or love this person will turn around and say, oh, well, it's just these people attacking them. I choose not to believe that. That must be, it doesn't matter whether it's true or it's not true. And this goes to two things, okay? One, I just recently went through this with a political action committee endorsing me. I had no control over it whatsoever. No control over it. It's just what happens. Mm-hmm. And I think it's very hypocritical of people to then use a political action committee endorsement or a flyer against a candidate that it's advocating for, but then turn around in the next moment, and if you like the candidate, then any endorsement from a political action committee is great.
Lance?
Yes. I hate political action committees.
Let's do this. I'm actually creating one.
I hate them.
We all know that the dark money from the swamp helped fund your campaign.
Oh yeah, of course.
In Kansas.
Yes, of course.
Because of our power in this country.
Oh yeah.
At the Harvey County
the commission is that big of a deal.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I still contest. Okay, and say
you know what I'm saying.
Well, and here's the thing.
But this is the thing, though. Here, your question.
Whatever you can use against somebody.
Is it the messenger? Is it The people get it. It's both.
Yeah.
So
I mean, you have to take some responsibility,
but you have to realize, open your eyes that these things are happening. You explained it so well about the crap on crap. One team sees the other team and they use it and they manipulate it, throw it back out. It's like, I got you, this one up. Nobody wins in those games.
Well, somebody wins an election. Okay, somebody wins an election.
Do you really?
Yeah, they win an election at everybody else's expense.
But do you really? Because look at where everybody ends up. Look where we're at right now.
Divisive.
I mean, come on.
Well, I honestly say we are in, and I will say this again and again and again. We are in a cold civil war, people. We are in a cold civil war. We literally have deduced ourselves down to the point in which I'm waiting for the straw that's going to break the camel's back. Okay, we've already seen rumblings of it. People will do things that are completely out of character based upon rhetoric and hate speech about, well, what it's not considered hate speech. It's your First Amendment right, of course. But I'll go this, okay?
Yeah, it's political speech.
Political speech. So here's another one, okay? Speaking of people doing things that are out of context. Now, this is going to, obviously come down to whether there was election interference or, we're going to blow this up to be something bigger. But the BBC reported and said, you can watch video if you look up BBC, moment U.S. ballot box found in the middle of road. Dashcam footage shows the moment U.S. election ballots were found in the middle of the road in Cutler Bay, Florida. A sealed bin and sealed bag of ballots fell off the back of an election worker's truck and were discovered by a passing car. The ballots were taken to a local police department where election staff verified all items and seals were intact. The county's election supervisor said that the ballots had already been scanned and tabulated at the South Dade Regional Library's early voting site. Despite the incident occurring due to a human error, the elections department said the worker responsible has been fired. Now, you know what that means? That means that guy was or that gal or that person was so angry because they assumed that those ballots were for one candidate or the other that they allowed for that ballot box to fall off the back and not have those counted. So this just plays into the rhetoric once again. Whether that be true or not, and it could just be an accidental human error, but people are not going to believe that. What they're going to believe
be planted
is
just for the purposes of media picking it up and talking about it to create doubt. There's so many angles. I mean, how many times did we see these riots and you see pallets of bricks literally sitting in a downtown corner where there was no construction going on? Yep. I mean, this was real stuff that happened. This is not maybe. This stuff happened. And so when you see stuff like that, you're wondering, what is that meant to do? So our teams on both sides, Republican and Democrat, war games. They war game a lot of stuff. There's actually public records out there of the war games and what they've done, and some things have been sent and that were leaked that go back to being authentic information on what happens.
We had, within the last week, we've had I believe 4. Go ahead and fact check me on the number, okay? We've had 4 ballot boxes that have been lit on fire.
Mm-hmm. I saw that.
Yeah. Conversation at the county commission this week was, why would somebody do that? Doesn't make sense. You don't know who's been voted for in that ballot box.
Right.
You could be destroying ballots that were for the candidate that you support.
But you just go back to whatever the vote was the last election and then assume.
Well, but here's the deal. Straight up, I don't believe for 1 second that whoever it is lit them things on fire and put bombs in them and whatever else they did was motivated to do so based on what ballots they thought were in the box.
Good call.
Agree.
Okay?
Maybe there's just somebody that's pissed off with the way things are.
They did that so some dude in Newton, Kansas would talk about it.
Yes.
And sow the seeds of doubt about this whole election.
Yeah, because
so the importance of the conversation at the county commission is actually the response by Rick Pifo, who said quite bluntly, every ballot is tracked.
What's it scanned?
Every ballot is tracked. So, and in some of those states, they're all mail ballot states. Okay? So one of the things he said was, if your choice is between mailing your ballot or dropping it off at the ballot box that's over at the courthouse, you should drop it at the ballot box that's at the courthouse, even after people have been bombing these things. Why? The reason why. Number one, when you mail your ballot, it could travel thousands of miles and be handled by hundreds and thousands of people in the mail system. When you drop it off at the courthouse, it travels 500 feet and it's handled by one person. And
Public safety alert.
Yep.
Public safety alert. The Harvey County Emergency Operations Center will be standby for noon until midnight.
oh yeah, we're high wind and fire,
right.
fire and all that fun stuff.
Yeah.
But anyway,
Boy, I was. I mean,
Can we
I thought
publish
maybe
this
it
within
was
the
a
next hour?
tornado
No.
bearing
So-
down on us.
I was getting ready to go.
Well,
I
it's
got a
like
safe
all of
room.
us get hit
We
at
can
the
get
same
there pretty quick. Just take my little cats with me and get my dogs in there. We'll be all right.
Hey, just make sure you go to the highest level of a steel building.
so to finish that up,
Talk about misinformation.
yeah. So to finish that up, he makes the point that every ballot is tracked. So if somebody were to do something stupid at the county courthouse, and for the people who did the stupid things in Washington, every ballot is tracked. So if you think that your ballot was affected, call them up, get a provisional, go ahead and fill it out and hand it back to them, right? Because on election day, they're going to know whether or not the mail ballot that you received was submitted or not.
I gotta say, I don't know about that.
They're
Chad,
going to
but
know.
That's why I say this.
They're going to know
'Cause
whether if there
technically-
is any remnant of the ballot. These are Rick's words. If there is any remnant of the ballot, they will know whose ballot that was.
I'm gonna.
So
wait till you're done.
what will happen is whatever ballot is readable and countable will be counted. So if it's the original ballot, that's what's going to count. The provisional gets thrown away.
Can I pull a lance real quick?
Sure.
I heard.
I was
what
gonna
they
do
were-
it. I was gonna do
Are you
it.
gonna do
No, I
it?
was gonna do it. Go
Oh,
ahead. Go
okay.
ahead. You do. You
Okay,
take it.
maybe
You take
that's-
it.
dude,
Breaking news. Breaking news.
I heard that the reason they're putting bombs in there was because they want people to mail in their ballots because they found a way to rig the mail-in part of it.
Yeah.
So if they put bombs in there, people are going to start mailing them.
Yeah.
That's what they're doing.
Yeah. And I just thought while we were talking, I mean, now throw this out here, okay? I mean,
And how many other thousands of ways? And that's where, to your point, I believe they're doing things like this. Trust me, there's black ops going on all around all of these on both
It's
parties,
sowing
strategies.
the distrust.
Yes, and that's why we're so divided.
Yep.
And we've got to be careful and just be vigilant that some of these things are plants and some of them just happen but it's our responsibility to take a deep breath, step back and go, what's happening in my circle?
what can I control?
And stop putting what's happening in Washington's politics at our local school board. Now, are there problems that trickle into us from that? Yes. And I could go off on that, but I won't do it today.
But don't you know, Andy? I mean, don't you know? And this is
Here
the
we
thing
go.
that drives
Here we go.
me insane. Okay, insane. And it's that, and we did talk a little bit before the program about this, but it's the fact that the president is not the dictator in chief. People, it really is a problem that we're having in society right now. Which is that because we have all of these issues. Now, this is international politics. I studied this, okay? In times of turmoil, when economies are on the brink, when natural disasters are happening, when people are needing decisive, speedy decisions to be made, right? Say in COVID, it came out in COVID-19 pandemic, okay? People polled were desirous of more of a dictator style of a regime because its turnaround to the response for them would be faster. It would be better if just one person was making the decision.
They want
to be
decisions.
done, right? And so because
Yes.
we have Congress, we're a representative democracy, right? Then we have, Congress and we have the executive branch and we have the judicial branch, all which fight at war with one another. I mean, really is what happens. But it comes down to this, okay? No matter how much you love a president, no matter how much you think this president's going to be the end of all, no matter how much you think this president's going to change this, that, or the other, the truth of the matter is look at Congress, because that is the way our system is designed. I've heard, and I just got to say this, okay, just to not be a hypocrite. But if I hear Bidenomics one more time, okay, as a reason that you need to vote for Trump, that is a complete farce. It's a complete farce, okay? It comes back to this. Who writes the checks? Who's responsible for spending that takes place in our country? It's Congress. It's Congress. If you have a problem with the way things are going in our society, point your finger at your own congressman. And you know what'll happen? When you go to your congressman and you say, hey, I've got this whole thing figured out, and I believe that you have a more important job, and I want you to be more accountable, then it immediately, and it happens every time, oh, no. I would be able to do this if it wasn't for all the Democrats that were trying to prevent it from happening. Or no, I would be able to do this if it wasn't for all those mean, dirty, nasty Republicans. And it's like, I mean, are we just all on the hook? There is truly a lack of understanding of how our government operates. And if you would really just let the blame lie where the blame should lie, then you'd be looking at your congressman. You'd be looking at Congress and what Congress is doing. You know, the president only gets not doing, right? See, the president.
And why?
Yeah.
Why? And there becomes
mutually
I gotta
assured
win
destruction.
an election.
Yep.
I gotta play this game. I've gotta.
It's Biden.
And it's unfolding, peeps.
Bidenomics.
I need to win this election.
No, it's not. It's
so
you.
I need this to be an issue during the election season. So, oh, by the way, Congress, this is what you need to do to support that.
Yeah.
And it can be pass this bill, or it can be don't pass this bill.
How about a 1,000-page bill? How about that? Let's get down to that. Is, you know, the way they operate is so frustrating.
It's complex and confusing
and
to
make it
confuse the consumer.
It goes,
yes.
And most people give up with 5 pages, and they know when they bury something in a ridiculous thing, and the people behind the scenes get their little piece met with some kind of other little, I will give up on that to get what I need here. And all of that goes on, it's a mess.
Oh, and
as long as I'm bringing home the bacon, as long as I'm getting funding for my state,
legislature is a master of that.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it happens at happens at a state level as well.
And they even have a name for it. It's called Christmas tree. The Christmas tree. And sometimes bills get Christmas treed to the point that they can't be passed. And sometimes bills get Christmas treed at 2:00 in the morning when we have to have something. They're a freaking master of it.
And it's always the other person. You know, I didn't want to do that. I mean, I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to vote for that. But, I mean, it had this in it, which was really good. And there was nothing I could do about this.
Hey,
it's not my fault.
Hold on,
vote for me. I'll go work harder for you.
But
Lance, it's a joke. It's a joke.
If you do this part, and I do this part, what you could say to your people is this. And then you tell me what I can say to my people, and we war game that to exhaustion at a $500 dinner on our dollars, by the way, until we figure out how we can help each other to go home and answer that question in a way that you can't really argue with it. And distract the real conversation from what's really happening to what you know that person in front of you really wanted. So most of these people have 4 different things that they know when you come up to me, it's going to be one of these 4 things. But the reason I did it was because of this thing. And this thing is for you. And it'll distract you because then you just need to know that I had your back.
Yeah. I was trying.
You know what I'm saying?
I'll keep trying.
This sleight of hand that they
and you
do
know what?
is so unbelievable. And people keep sending them up.
Yeah.
And we want to complain and beat up each other. And you're on it.
Yeah.
That's the problem. And the people that go in that want to fix it start getting molded at the state level. And you've got to figure out where to find the champions to break that, or get them an opening, or have them understand how to blend better and then be more honest at the end of the day. Because I've seen people, I've seen friends of mine come back shocked and having to do things that they have to do, but be shocked.
And I've seen other people have friends that have completely changed. And I have particular friends that said, don't let that happen to me. And I promised that I wouldn't let that happen. So there's a balance between all of that. But the system is what it is. And we're at the bottom. We're a spoke on the wheel. And until we realize that you got to love your neighbors and you're going to have differences in America, the beautiful thing about this thing is we have all kinds. And when you start hating the people next door to you, because you don't even know them, but you see a sign in their yard, you got a problem.
Speaking of signs in yards, Andy. Okay. Post put out on Facebook, one of the community pages here locally. And some paraphrase it because I didn't screenshot it to bring it, but it came down to the fact that, hey, there's a lady in her 50s.
Saw that.
Is walking down a certain Old Main here in our community, and they're just picking up campaign signs and throwing them underneath the bridge. We talked about this last week, didn't we, Chad? Where we talked about the way people.
I don't
can't
have a
leave
whole
their
lot to say about this one.
So here's my thing.
Are you
right?
related?
No, I heard a rumor that it was Chad's wife.
Every time.
Send it.
Oh man, breaking news!
There's a clip right there.
Well,
Newton,
my
Kansas
wife ain't in
editor.
her 50s. Sorry. I married young. So
You wanted somebody to take care of you at your old age, huh?
pretty much every single time this whole thing with campaign signs come up, I say the exact same freaking thing, and I hope at some point it gets through.
The look. Give me the look.
That's me filtering because I want to drop an F-bomb right now.
Who the are you talking about?
I saw the filter come over.
I really want to drop an F-bomb right now. It happens every election.
Yeah.
Every single one. And every single one, I say the exact same thing. And at some point, it needs to get through to you boneheads.
Put razor blades on them. Oh,
Here
no.
it is.
That's not what you're saying?
When you do that crap, it says more about the candidate that you support than that the candidate that you are victimizing.
They ain't listening.
Not to that part.
Dead freaking serious.
Not me.
Okay? So if you have
I'm trying to save the world. Y'all don't understand.
Yeah. Honestly, if you have so little faith in your candidate that you think the best way to help them win is to go steal, vandalize, and destroy campaign signs, before you walk out the door to do it, just have this one thought. Maybe I should just sit my ass on the couch and watch TV.